guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. So today's video I'm going to be concentrating on reasons why your love spells might be failing. So we're fast approaching Valentine's Day 2020 and I get asked a lot around this time of year for love spells of all kinds, and it's fantastic. I think it's really lovely and I quite enjoy working love magic, especially if it's really generic love magic, in order to get somebody that all important partner so they can feel happy and fulfilled. I think that's really nice energy to work with. But I also get a lot of people asking for return to me spells, wanting ex-partners to be returned, and you know, gotta be honest guys, that's not so nice energy to work with, but I'll get a little bit into that later on. So during this video I'm going to give you my 5 main rules for, you know, that I tend to follow when I'm doing love magic. This isn't rules that I expect you guys to follow, it's just personal rules for me, and there's reasons why I have these rules, and the reason I'm going to tell you them is because they help you kind of think about the spell you're going to cast and actually realise if it's the right spell to begin with, and think about the kind of magic that you're incorporating into your life or the lives of other people in order to select the right spells for them. So I do think these kinds of rules are quite important, and I've developed them over years and I still use them today. I don't just automatically jump in and do a spell. I use these rules to help me define the spell and if it's the right spell. But again, I'll explain that as I start talking to you about the rules. And the second half of the video is going to be about reasons why love spells fail. And there's a lot of reasons why love spells fail. Often it's just that you haven't thought about all the angles or the people involved, and other times it's quite serious stuff. So again, I'll explain each of the reasons love spells fail one at a time so you can understand that. So none of what's in this video is going to be aimed at people in a negative way. So I'm not, you know, telling you all that your spells are, you know, crap and that's why they fail. Often love spells are brilliant and they're cast perfectly, but there might be unforeseen things that you haven't thought about that could have affected the spell. So that's part of the reason I'm doing this video. The other thing is, guys, I know a lot of you out there don't follow the Wiccan read. Some of you are, you know, old school witches, same as myself, or an eclectic witch, which is what I am as well, and that you don't follow any kind of paths. You don't follow the witch's creed or the Wicca read, and you don't believe in a lot of the rules that loads of books have talked about, and that's completely fine because everybody's craft and path is completely unique. So this is a non-judgmental video, guys. I'm just doing it really generically just to give you the facts of why some of your love spells might be failing in order for you to improve upon your craft and grow as an individual. So again, my rules are my rules. I'm not telling you have to do them, but there's reasons I have them, and they help me define my craft and help me define my spells in order to do the right spell, you know, for the situation. So these are my rules, guys. So my first rule is you should never force someone to do something against their will. So this is a really taboo question, really, to be honest, because a lot of people want, you know, a certain person, or they desire a certain person, so then they ask for spells to get that person in their life, but then they don't think of the consequences of that. So again, this is a non-judgmental video, guys, but I do want to say that you all know right from wrong, and it is wrong to force somebody against their will to do something just because you desire it, because that's quite a selfish thing on your part. So, you know, you need to think about the consequences of what you're asking, because every action has a reaction, and sometimes those reactions are unforeseen and unexpected, and sometimes they can be really negative for yourself as well. So the reason I say don't force someone back to you, and there's a few examples of this, but one of the main examples was something that happened to a friend of mine. So she forced an ex-partner to come back to her using magical means because she was adamant that he was the love of her life and she absolutely needed him back in her life. So she did this spell and it worked. She got him back. However, they'd been separate for quite a while. We're talking at least half a year by this point, and during that 6 months that he'd been away from her, he'd changed fundamentally as a person. So he'd fallen in with the wrong crowd because he had to go and live in a house share after they'd initially split up, and the house share he lived in, the people in it were into drugs and dealing drugs, so of course then he got involved with taking drugs and eventually dealing them. He got quite addicted, and when he returned to her life she had no idea about this, so he was an addict. He actually stole from her, he lied to her, he didn't cheat on her, so he was quite committed to the relationship because of the spell. However, he did abuse her because he wasn't getting his fix, and he was this angry, frustrated mess. So he ended up, you know, started off abusing her, you know, mentally and making her doubt herself when things would go missing. Then it started becoming emotional because he would emotionally blackmail her and, you know, affect her on a lot of levels, so she'd have mental breakdowns. And then eventually it led to physical abuse where she was actually put in hospital, guys. And afterwards, you know, when I went to see her, she said straight away, I wish I had never done that spell. And I was unaware of that spell at that point until she told me in the hospital, and then she asked me to break it so that he would leave her life. And I can remember breaking the spell and getting statements from his friends saying, oh, he didn't understand why he was in that relationship in the first place, or why he even stayed with her. And I knew it was because of the spell that she'd done. So he wanted to leave. He had the desire to leave and couldn't understand why he was with her, because inside, deep inside, he knew that being with her was wrong on some level, but he couldn't leave because there was this spell in place that had made him stay and commit to that relationship with her. And then, of course, violently he'd acted out, not just through his addictions, but of course through the spell itself, because he didn't understand why he was there. So when I broke it, there was a lot of clarity involved in that, and of course, you know, once he left, he never came back, and she never looked back because of what had happened. So there was a massive mistake made on her part, which was that she didn't really understand what the spell was going to do. She didn't understand the consequences of casting that spell, and of course, yes, she got exactly what she wanted, which was him back in her life, in a relationship, but he changed as a person and wasn't the person she originally fell in love with. So that's an important message, guys, is to really think about what you're asking for, and think about what might happen if you get that person, and how long have you been separated from them, and what could have happened in that time you were separated. So, you know, just a thought. But another thing I want to say here, guys, is, you know, if I have this kind of spell done on me where somebody had forced me against my will to get in a relationship, there's several emotions I know I'd be feeling if I discovered that. I would, you know, first of all be confused. I would be very, very hurt. I'd feel very used and abused, and then I'd feel angry. I'd be very angry, if I'm honest, and, you know, might even get angry to the point of wanting revenge, because I've spent, you know, how many years dedicating myself and my life to that individual, and then I found out it was all a lie. So, you know, that's why I say don't force people. I don't ever force anybody against their will in any of my magic. So when a client comes to me and says, I'd like you to do a return to me spell, I make it absolutely clear that the way I work my spells and the way I've worded them, and I have designed all my own spells for this, guys, is I actually work on the connection that's already in existence. So obviously, if you've been in a relationship with that person, there's a bond, there's an emotional connection, and so long as no severing magic has been done or any, you know, decording, those bonds are still there, which means I can bring those bonds back to life. I can remind that person of the relationship and how they felt when they were with you, and I can subtly encourage them to come back and bring them into your life. And when they're in your life, it's up to you then to seduce them and get them back in a relationship. There's a couple of reasons why I work this way, but the main one is that when they get back in a relationship with you and you're happy and contented, you're not somewhere down the line going to doubt the working. You're not going to sit there and go, well, are they only with me because I did a spell? Or are they with me because they want to be with me? So you're not going to self-sabotage down the line, because you know they're with you because they want to be with you and they love you. All I've done is bring them into your life enough for you to do all the hard work and for you to get them back. So, you know, that's how I work with my return to me spells. I return them to you, but I don't force them to get in a relationship with you, and I don't force them to love you. I don't force them to stay with you either. That's all on you. My second rule is consider all options and the people involved that would be affected by your spell casting. So this is quite an important one. So obviously, considering all your options and the people involved, you know, there could be a lot of different people involved for a lot of different reasons, but, you know, going back to the return to me spell, you know, things you might have to consider is, you know, they might have gone off and got married to somebody else, then you have to consider the other person involved in this situation. You know, do they deserve to have that, you know, marriage and that relationship broken up? Probably not. So you have to consider their feelings and the consequences of that. Then also there could be kids involved, so then you have to think about, you know, the kids and how's that going to work. So, you know, it's just this question, this kind of rule I have kind of makes me think about the spell I'm considering, makes me think about the situation and all the people involved and how they would be affected by the spell I'm asking for. And sometimes when I've really thought about it, I kind of go, oh, that's not the right spell, I need to rethink this. And I end up coming to a much better spell down the line. So it is quite important to think about the spells and the people involved, guys. And I know some of you out there might be thinking, oh, why would I care about these other people? But think about it this way. If you cast a spell to summon an ex-lover back into your life so you can have them, but they're married, the marriage is a major factor, because you need to remove somebody from this person's life in order for you to have them and have what you want. And if you do manage to get that person back in your life, so they've returned to you, what's to stop them going back to that other person? Because there's a bond there, there's a marriage, there's a connection. So they might come back to you, but then that other person might do a return to me spell. So then you've got this tug of war going on, and this poor person's in the middle being pulled in 2 different directions. And eventually, you know, somebody's going to snap, whether it's you, the other person, or the main, you know, love interest. They, you know, somebody's going to snap and lose their temper because they can't keep, you know, going in that, you know, circle, because it's not right. So by considering all the people involved, one of the things you might have to consider is perhaps moving that other person on and into a new happy relationship. That does 2 things. It stops them fighting over the person you want, and it means that they are happy, which is a positive to the negative that you're doing, neutralising the situation karmically. So that's another thing to think about, guys. Another thing to consider, as I say, is if they had kids. So if they had kids, it's no good sitting there and saying, why would I care about the kids? Well, you should care, guys, because at some point those kids are going to meet you, they're going to be in your life, and they're going to be part of your family situation. So you need to find a way for that to work and for you to be, you know, on good terms with both parents, because obviously there's going to be co-parenting involved. So think about what you're asking for, think about the consequences of the spell and what that's going to mean, and think about all the lives it's going to affect before you cast it. That's why I have that rule. My next rule is carefully consider which spell is the right spell for the situation. So this ties in with my second rule, because sometimes when I'm thinking about a spell, it's not the right spell. And how I come to that conclusion is through divination. So I actually believe that no matter what your spell is, you should always do divination, guys. Because you can ask questions like, you know, should I cast this spell? Is this spell the right spell for this situation? What will happen if I cast this spell? You know, is there any negatives I need to be aware of, and are there any unknown factors? And by getting all this information, you can then decide if that spell is still the right course of action. And sometimes you might go, actually, no, it's not. And then after a bit of research, you might come across a much better spell, or you might design one that's more desirable for what you want to achieve, and then cast that instead. And again, if I think about changing my spell to a new one, I always do divination around that new one. I don't just assume that, you know, the first answers have led me to that. I always do divination no matter what, before I cast any spell, and then I obviously know what to expect from the spell as well. So divination, guys, so that's what that one reminds me to do, and it reminds me to check that my spell is going to be the right one and the best one for the situation. So that brings me to rule number 4, which is it might be necessary to cast more than one spell in conjunction with the main spell. So what I mean by this rule is sometimes in a situation, it's one spell can't do everything that you want in order to get a certain result. So sometimes then it's multiple spells. So you might cast one big one that affects the main situation, but then you have to do little ones in order to clear the way, remove obstacles, in order to, you know, give that spell a clear path to manifest what you want. So think about the spell, think about the situation, and think about any smaller spells you could do in conjunction. So a good example of this might be that, you know, oh, you really, really fancy someone in the workplace. I mean, really fancy them. And you want them to say yes to you asking them out on a date. So you cast a spell for that. And they do say yes. But then you might want to cast smaller kind of spells. So there might be ones, for example, to banish any rivals to that person's affections, so that you are the only one in their path. You might also do some spells on yourself, so confidence, for example, because confidence is extremely sexy, guys. A lot of people love to be, you know, confident and be in a relationship with somebody who's very confident and can, you know, show them the world. So confidence. You might also want to focus on things like, you know, enchanting your perfume or your cologne in order to, you know, make that person, you know, drive them wild with desire, and, you know, make them want to be around you. And, you know, I did that many years ago, and I used to get this guy I worked with, he used to come up to me and he used to go, oh, you smell amazing, why do you smell amazing? And he would generally sniff me. And I know a lot of you out there might be going, that's a bit weird, but actually at the time, because he was super handsome, made me feel really sexy, really empowered. And, you know, and I had this sort of spring in my step every time he did that, because I was like, oh yeah, he wants me. You know, my magic's working, you know, and that automatically makes you more desirable, because then you've got confidence and charisma. You know, it's doing something to you energetically, and it's changing your vibrations. So this is what I mean about thinking about your spells and maybe casting more than one spell in order to get what you want. I mean, that was one spell at the time, guys, just to test it out, but actually now I do multiple spells to get a result. So sometimes multiple spells is necessary, guys. And then that brings me to my last one, which is once a love spell is cast, it cannot be undone. So there are spells out there which will break spells, either spells that you've done yourself or spells that other people have done, but they do not work with love magic. And the reason they don't work with love magic is because you're dealing with very complicated emotions. Human emotions are massively complicated, guys. I can't stress that enough. We all know from being in relationships how complicated things can get and how complicated those emotions can be. And you know, even if you plan something to a T, something always goes wrong, especially when you're involving other people and other people's emotions, and not everyone thinks and feels in the way we expect. So that's why this rule is quite important. So this kind of reminds me that, you know, are you absolutely sure you want to do this spell? Because once you do, you cannot take it back, you cannot undo it. So it's kind of like my final are you sure moment, and that's why that rule is there. So just to recap, guys, you should never force someone against their will. Consider all options and the people involved before you cast a spell, because they'll all be affected. Carefully consider which is the right spell, aka divination. It might be necessary to cast more than one spell in conjunction with the one you're thinking about casting, and once you cast the love spell, it cannot be undone. So they're all really important rules. I love my 5 rules. I've developed them over the years. They make me think about my magic and my spells, and they make me define the kind of love spells that I want to cast and the kind of caster I want to be. So as I say, this isn't about preaching about the Wicca read, guys, but we all do know right from wrong. We're taught that from a very early age. So you know, this for me is more about being a good person, you know, and about my own morals and about the kind of witch I want to be, because I want to be a really good witch. I don't want to be somebody that just throws spells around left, right and centre. So I really want to think about my magic. I really want to think about the kind of spells that I'm casting, and of course I do want to get results for my clients, but that's another reason I have these rules, because it really makes me think about my magic and my choices in order to get the right results. So I'm picking the right spells because I'm breaking the situation down and really thinking about things. So that's why I have them, guys. So moving on, so the second half video is about reasons why your spells might fail, and there's quite a few reasons why spells fail, but I'm going to stick to the main ones and I'm going to explain them one by one and give you examples. And again, this is not judgmental at all, guys. This is just things that I have generally come across that have affected spells and made spells fail in the past, not necessarily my own. A lot of these tips that I'm going to give you are surrounding other people's spells, and when people have emailed me and asked me why the spell's failed, giving me information about that spell, I've noticed a few things. So that's why I'm doing this part of the video. So the first one is obstacles. So I touched on this earlier, guys. Obstacles are a major factor in love magic, and I often get asked, what is an obstacle in a spell? Well, an obstacle to a spell is something that's going to hinder the energy from manifesting. So, you know, something like, you know, in the example of you want a return to me spell cast, you know, the caster does it, and then, you know, a few months down the line you come back to the spellcaster and you say, oh, the spell didn't work, and then the spellcaster starts questioning you about the situation, and then you reveal that that person was married. Well, the marriage is an obstacle that you didn't make the spellcaster aware of, which is why the spell failed, because, you know, a return to me spell may make the person come back into your life, but it wouldn't make them stay. And if they're married, they might be obligated to go back to that married person, because marriage is a binding contract between two souls, guys. So, you know, when you choose to marry someone, you're actually declaring to the universe that you're only gonna spend the rest of your life with this one person, and that one person is your entire life, you know, the love of your life. That's a very powerful bond and a very powerful statement to the powers that be. You know, so no matter what religion, what path you're in, your marriage is very sacred. And when you choose to marry someone, I know witchcraft, it's a hand fastening, but when you choose to bind yourself to somebody like that, it's a very serious choice and should be taken very seriously. So, you know, in turn, when you're thinking about doing a spell, then you need to really consider, you know, if that person's married and what that means, and then how to go about dealing with that, because that's an obstacle you need to overcome and remove before the spell is going to manifest. So, you know, advice I'm going to give, and again, no judgment, guys. However, I don't condone this at all. This isn't the kind of magic that I perform. However, if you were going to call a partner back to you in this situation, you know, where they're married and say potentially they have kids, the marriage, as I say, is an obstacle. The love between those partners is an obstacle, because love, like I said, is a very powerful emotion. There's very little out there that can break the bonds of love. And, you know, you see a lot of movies out there, you know, especially fancy ones that go on about the power of love and, you know, and how strong it truly is. That's actually true. You know, love is very powerful stuff. And, you know, if someone, you know, is in love with someone else and you're trying to, you know, bring one of those people into your life, then, you know, that bond, that connection needs to be severed first. Then you've got the kids. You know, the kids are another obstacle, and you might have to cast spells in order to affect the children as well in some way, so such as healing, stability, and amicability between the two parents because of co-parenting. So there's a lot of things to consider before your return to me spell is even going to be successful. And if you cast your return to me spell, and I have actually seen this happen, guys, and you know that person returns to you, great, but then you can't then complain that that person then goes back to the partner, you know, the husband or the wife, and then say, oh, the spell didn't work. Well, no, it did. You got what you wanted. They came back. But they're still married and bonded to the other person, so of course they're going to go back. So you need to remove that other person, so banishment might be necessary. Or if you want to be really positive about the situation, which is what I would recommend, is casting a love spell upon that other partner so they leave and find someone 10 times better, so they can be really, really happy, really contented, you know, so you're adding positivity in the situation, so you're happy with the partner you asked for, but they're happy with their new partner. And then spells, you know, for healing and family unity might be good to bring everyone together, to co-parent in order for the children to have lovely, stable lives as well. So this is already multiple spells before that one spell is going to work. So, you know, again, thinking about your spells, guys. You know, another one could be communication. So you might, you know, want someone to come back in your life. You've recently, say, broken up with a partner within, you know, a few weeks to a month, and you're saying, well, I want them back. But what you did was really, really bad. You might have to cast a forgiveness spell as well as a return to me spell. You might have to cast a communication spell if the communication between the two of you was really poor, in order to, you know, build understanding and trust between you both. So there's a lot of different things to look at. You know, quite often spells are not one spell, guys. They're multiple spells. They need to be layered as such in order to get what you want. So, you know, really talking to your spellcaster, or really thinking about your situation before you cast a spell is really important, and write down all these things and make notes of the pros and cons of what you're about to do, and figure out the obstacles and figure out what it is you need to do before you do it, and then work towards that goal. Another one is bad wording. So bad wording in spellcasting is really common. I see this a lot in books. Now there are literally thousands of books now out there on the craft, and when I first started there was so little information, it was ridiculous. And often witches would have to write and develop their own spells in order to cast a spell, because there was so little information out there. And you know what spell books were out there were usually really complicated and, you know, really occult based. Nowadays there's so many writers and so many different spell books that now we've actually got the problem of there's too much information. A lot of the information is incorrect or been diluted, or, you know, incorrectly interpreted from other religions and cultures. So then we end up with spells that are, you know, really poorly written, really poorly designed, really not going to work, and they're so simplified that a child could do them, but there's no real intent behind them, and there's no real instructions on how to build the intent and the energy in that spell to make it successful. And, you know, sometimes they literally hand feed you information as well, where they'll give you the day and the moon phase or the sun phase to cast your spell on, and then all the ingredients, and then a simple like layout, and then they'll tell you, you know, say an incantation or a power statement, and that's kind of it. But then they don't teach you how to, you know, prepare all the tools, a location, disposal of the spell at the end. So then, of course, this is where things start to go wrong. But bad wording is a primary one. So, you know, bad wording in a spell ranges from, you know, really, really complicated, so, you know, it doesn't really make sense, to, you know, really bizarre, as in someone's tried to write an incantation and not really thought about how it's going to rhyme or work, and then of course it doesn't make sense by the end of it, and, you know, actually would manifest something completely undesirable. Another one is, you know, not having an incantation at all, but writing a power statement, but writing it in a negative way. So things like saying, you know, I desire this to come into my life, and what you're saying to the universe is you don't have this thing, so therefore it's not going to bring it to you, because you're constantly saying you don't have it. So you need to say I have it. So again, rewording things. My advice in, you know, when it comes to wording spells, guys, is if you really are not very good at writing incantations, don't do them. It takes practice, and it takes, you know, discipline, and it takes, you know, a lot of energy and time to kind of put into an incantation in order to get it right. And I've got, you know, 28 years of experience of doing this, and, you know, I love incantation writing, but it did take me about 10 years to start to get it right before I started becoming really successful at it, you know, and that's a lot of time to dedicate to learning to write your spells and develop your spellcraft. So, you know, if you haven't got the time and you're not really going to be that dedicated and using spells all the time, my advice is write a statement of intent instead, which is simple. You know, it's just I have this, or this person is happy in a relationship with me. Or you can write a petition. Now, a petition is really simple to do and really great if you're a beginner. If you don't know how to write and create a petition, I have a separate video on that, and I will put that link in the description so you can watch that video and learn how to write them. But they are super easy, really effective, and can be used in lots and lots of different ways in spell casting. So petition is definitely something you should include if you don't want to do a power statement. And if you don't want to do either of those because you, like me, really like incantations, that's fine. But maybe read your incantation out loud a few times, really tweak it. And, don't go with your first writing. Often I, break it down and then rewrite it over and over until I end up with one I really like that works. And really think about the way you're wording it as well, and get some advice online. You can even use another spell as a base and then build upon that if you want. I've done that before. So wording, guys, is very important. The next one is ingredients and not empowering your ingredients properly. So as I say, you'll end up with lots of books out there that will advise you on spells, and they'll give you an ingredients list. And quite often, when people come to me and say my spell didn't work and then they show me the spell, I'm straight away questioning why those ingredients, why they've been incorporated. And then sometimes the ingredients are spot on, but then the person casting it hasn't realised they have to empower those ingredients and tell the ingredients what energies you want them to incorporate. Just as advice, guys, so this is a tip. All ingredients in magic, even colours, have lots and lots of different corresponding abilities. So as an example, lavender is an excellent herb for attraction and for stability in a relationship. So it's a great love herb, but that's not its only function. It's used in all sorts of psychic developments. It's used in dream magic, insomnia, healing. So already we've got a lot of different things that this herb does. So then it stands to reason that you almost need to direct that herb and tell it what it needs to do. So it needs to be told its job, its responsibility in the spell. So what I tend to do is I pre-mix a lot of my herbs. So when I select my herbs, I will get them in my mortar and pestle, and as I'm grinding them, I will tell each herb what I want it to do. So I'll say, lavender, I want you to build the bonds between my partner and I and offer stability to the relationship and love, and then I'll grind that in, and then so on and so forth, saying that for each ingredient that I've used. Same with the oils, I'll hold them in my hand and enchant and empower them. And then when I've come to do the spell, then I don't need to think about that step within the spell because I've done it in advance. So then I can just add them in, they know what they're going to do, and they do it, and they draw in all the right energies but push out the ones I don't want, already making the energies correct for the spell. So that's what I mean by empowering them and challenging your ingredients. Now, if you find a spell you like and there's an ingredient that you don't like, you can change it, guys. Just research an ingredient that has all the same kind of characteristics and meanings, and then incorporate that instead. And if you really can't find anything, just eradicate that ingredient completely. You don't need it. You can tailor your spells. So that's just advice for you guys. Moving on. So the next one is magical timing. So there is this generation out there, and I'm going to be really delicate about this, guys, but there's a lot of you out there that are really lazy with your spell crafting, and there's a lot of people out there that kind of just say, just do this spell, but they don't tell you when to do it. And there are a lot of generations of witches out there that now don't incorporate magical timing, and then they wonder why the spells fail. So magical timing is extremely important, guys. It's a really powerful thing to incorporate in your magic, and if you actually plan your spells correctly and do them on the correct day, incorporating all the right energies, you'll be amazed at the results. Honestly, I swear. Magical timing, I swear by it. It is super important. And I'm not saying you have to use the right moon phase on the right day with the right magical hour, incorporating the right star signs and the right planets. That's ridiculous, and it might never happen because you might be waiting months for it and you need your spell now. So I always put my spells into two categories. There's the ones I need now, so emergency spells where I cannot wait, I absolutely have to cast it now, and that's fine, I do that, but then I always recast the same spell on the correct day with the correct energies, enforcing my spell to manifest. So that's advice for you. And then category 2 is spells that I really want to be stable and structured within my life so I can wait. I don't have to rush those spells because I can plan them properly and I can wait. So that's what I mean by dividing your spells up a little bit. So if I'm casting for a client, I always say to them, right, I can cast it now, or I can plan it in on the day with the right energies, and all the time the client will say, yeah, I want the right energies, because then I know it'll work, because I'm incorporating all the right energies. So it stands to reason that they're paid for something, so they want to guarantee it's going to work. So as the caster, I advise them that it's better for them to let me plan it out and map it and tell them the date I'm going to cast it on, and then I provide them with evidence of that as well, so they know I have actually done it. And I remind them on the day. I say, right, just as a reminder, today is the day I'm going to be doing your spell, so they're aware. So magical time is very important. So let's talk about the timing. So if you're going to cast a love spell, guys, the best days for this is a Friday and a Monday. Friday is ruled over by the planet Venus, so automatically that incorporates the energies of Aphrodite and the goddess Venus. And it's also the day of Freya, and she's the Norse goddess of love, marriage and commitment. So again, all of these energies on a Friday is the best day. So Friday's like the ultimate day of love, so any kind of love spell can be cast on a Friday, and it doesn't really matter about the time of day. If you want to choose maybe an hour in the day that matches either your star sign or the star sign of, you say, the person you're casting on, you can do that if you really want to, guys. And there's loads of charts online where you can find that information out completely free. You can also, if you have a moon app like I have on my phone, that will also tell you, so you can swing on to that day and it'll tell you what, you know, star sign rules that day, so you know what to incorporate and call upon, or what to banish out, so you don't want that energy. So that's another way to do it. The other day, as I say, is a Monday. So Monday is the day of the moon, ruled over by the moon's energy, and therefore goddess power. So really good for, you know, emotion, the triple goddess, any kind of moon goddesses, and many of them cover love energies as well. You've got Aphrodite, you've got Hecate, you've got Diana, you've got Luna. There's lots and lots of different goddesses that, you know, rule over love and, you know, relationships and romance and sexual energy that you can incorporate using a Monday and the moon's power. Also, if you cast on a Monday, it will double up the energy of the moon, because obviously it's the day of the moon. So if you choose to choose the moon phase and then you cast on a Monday, you're incorporating both those energies and, you know, doubling the success of the spell. So that's something else to consider. Let's talk about the moon phases. So you've got 4 main phases I'm going to focus on. So the first one is the new moon. The new moon is excellent for blessing and starting new relationships. So brand spanking new relationships with someone you've never been with before. It's great for blessing the start of a relationship as well, so it would be successful and committed. Then you've got the waxing moon, where it's growing from nothing to something. So during that time you can attract and pull in energies into your life. So that type of moon phase is excellent for attracting an ex-lover back into your life, or a specific person. It's also good for attracting a new partner. So if you haven't yet met a partner, you can draw in potential mates, and then you can select them out of that pool of people that have been drawn into your life. Then you've got the full moon. The full moon can be used for absolutely any kind of love casting, because it's good for manifestation, wishes and development. And it's also good for as a power boost as well to any spell you're casting. So the full moon's excellent for all of that. And then you've got the waning moon. So the waning is when it's from full to nothing, where it's pushing things away. So it's excellent for when you want to banish people from your life, for going through breakups. It's really good for removing rivals to your love or relationship. It's really good for obstacle removal. And it's really good as well for if you've attracted the attention of an unwanted lover, because then you can subtly push them away as well. And then you've got the dark of the moon. Now the dark of the moon is excellent for when you want to work slightly more baneful magic or work on yourself. So it's really good for self-healing. It's really good for purging and breaking cords and bonds between you and people, and it's really good for severing magic as well. So that's the types of moon phases. So you can actually plan and map the spell to the correct moon phase. And as I say, all of these, the main phases, so the new moon, the full moon and the dark moon, tend to last about 3 days each. And then you've got the waning and the waxing, which is several days long. So a lot of those you'll find you will be able to use at least the Monday or the Friday on one of those moon phases that will match. And if you don't want to pick the right day, make sure that in the spell you're stating why you're using that particular time, as in, aka, the moon's energy, and why you're incorporating that moon's energy. Same as I advise with ingredients, guys. And then that banishes out the energies you don't want, but brings in the ones you do. So magical time is important, guys. Then that brings me on to focus and intent. So it's no good casting a spell and, you know, being prepped, and you've spent all that time gathering all your tools, prepping and planning, and then you get right to do your spell and then the phone goes off. Or there's a knock at the door, or the dog comes in and wrecks everything, knocks your candles over, or, you know, you get in your circle and you cast it, and then you're dying for a wee, so then you have to, you know, take down your circle and run out because you're desperate for the loo. Or even worse, you're sat there and you're kind of, you know, focusing, and you're starting to do your spell, and then you start thinking, oh, I need to put the washing on. These are all the wrong energies, guys. You don't want to be thinking about doing mundane tasks, and you don't want to be disturbed or interrupted, ruining the energy and the atmosphere of the spell. So you need to be focused, you need to have intent, and you need to be disciplined enough to do the spell, and you need to make sure that you are alone when you do it, and that all the right energies and tools are present. So preparation is important. and you definitely need to make sure that your mind is focused. So my tips and tricks for this is make sure that you pre-plan everything in advance. So, you know, when you've chosen your day and your time to do the spell in advance, get all your tools ready, gather all your ingredients, buy whatever you need, charge, bless them, and, you know, enchant them, whatever you need to do in order to prep. Pick the location you're going to do it, prep that if you can. So if it's in your house, you know, maybe prep a shelf or a space and have it ready. So then when you come to do your spell, you're simply doing it. Another good tip is to make sure that you're cleansed. So I always have a ritualistic bath or a shower where I incorporate salt in order to purge myself of negative energies. I often wear either clean pyjamas or my dressing gown. If I can, I like to do spells sky clad, which is naked, because then you've got no mundane energies on you whatsoever. Obviously that can be quite cold in the winter, so that's when I wear a dressing gown or clean pyjamas. And by clean, I mean a fresh pair, so, you know, something that hasn't been worn yet. So when you put it on, it's got no energies on it except the energies that you currently are in that state when you put them on. And by that point, you're ready to do your spell, so your mindset should be focused on the spell, so all the right energies are incorporated. I also think it's a good idea that when you cast your circle, and you should always cast a circle, guys, just a piece of advice, you cleanse yourself in that space. Even though you've had your ritualistic bath, I always use Palo Santos. I cleanse myself and my space so I know that it's clear and neutral, and then I go ahead and do everything I need to in the spell. And then the last piece of advice I want to give you as well is to make sure you're disposing of your spells correctly. So this is something people don't talk about very often, but I do get a lot of people when they're describing to me spells and they're trying to figure out why they went wrong, and then I say, what did you do with these spell remains? Especially if I can't figure out during the main thing why it's failed, and then I get to the end, they go, well, I just chucked it in the bin. And I go, okay, so you desire this person, you've done a spell to call them to you, and then you went and chucked it in the bin. What does that say about the spell and the energies, guys? It says that your love and your feelings for that person is trash, it's garbage, it's rubbish, it's in the bin with all the disgusting things. So all the wrong energies. So my advice for you is to think about the remains of your spell. Best spell disposal techniques would be things like you know, burying your spell. So if it's biodegradable, so make sure you're choosing your tools properly and make sure everything is biodegradable. You can bury your spell on your property. So if you live in a flat, use a plant pot, for example, or just a pot of dirt where you know you can keep that on a shelf or something. And by burying it, it'll biodegrade. You can tell the element of earth that you want this spell to be grown and to become stable and to be fruitful, because that's what the element of earth does. By burying it on your property, if it's a positive spell, you're attracting that to you and then keeping it because it's on your property. If it's something you want to get rid of, so say like a negative person or a rival, then you want to get rid of it. So putting that in the trash is fine. If you want to do it in a nice way, so it's someone you still care about, but you want to release them and let them go, water is a good option, because water is the representation of emotion and healing. So you could, again, make sure it's biodegradable and it's, you know, safe for the environment. You could throw the remains of the spell in running water and tell water you want them removed from your life, taken far away, but healed and, you know, in a positive way, and then walk away. So water will positively heal them and help them emotionally move on. So that's another one. Fire, you can burn things. Fire offers power, passion, you know, action into something. So if you need something quickly, fire's a really good one for that. So you can burn all the remains and let that melt away using a fire safe container. So a cauldron is good for that, guys. So again, thinking about things. And then we come to the last point, which is your emotions. So I get a lot of people saying that they, you know, their emotions aren't a factor in a spell, but they are. So obviously, you know, if you ask a spellcaster such as myself to do a spell for you, and you think that you have, you know, nothing to do with the spell, you're wrong. So the spellcaster will ask you for things like your photo, your date of birth, and your full name. The reason they do that is to lock the energy that they're manifesting to you and your life. But then if you're this negative, you know, panicked, anxious thing with all that negative energy, you're damaging and destroying the spell and, you know, the work that spellcaster's done. So it's not just about the intent of the caster, it's about the intent of the person asking as well. So as the caster, my responsibility is to make sure my energy is correct. So as I say, I go through various steps to prep for that. And then during the spell itself, I think about things that make me happy. So my partner, whom I love, for example, so I'm bringing in all those loving energies and I'm thinking about all the qualities that I love about him that make me happy, bringing in positive energies into the spell, concentrating on something that will make me smile during the spell, making me feel loved and desired, bringing in, as I say, all the right energies. And then it's no good me doing all that, and then you're this anxious, horrible, negative thing, doubting the spell and doubting its success, because you're damaging that. So you also then need to focus on things that make you happy. You need to do the actual things that the spellcaster tells you to do. So often, you know, we'll give you little tasks, whether it's focuses or manifestations or, you know, meditations to do in order to focus your energy. And every time you catch yourself in a negative thought, turn it to a positive. Even if it's something like on board, say, oh, but that's okay, because I'm usually super busy, so I could do with the downtime. You know, turn it into a positive. So that's how you do it, guys. So concentrate on your own vibes and thoughts, and try and keep them as positive as possible, so you don't affect the spell negatively. So that's all I've got for you today, guys. So that's all my tips and tricks for love magic and reasons why it might fail. So consider all of those before you do your spells, and there's no reason why your spell should fail. The last thing I want to say to you is the only one reason why, even if you did all of that and followed all the rules, your spell would fail, and that is because your higher self is refusing to manifest what you've asked for because it doesn't serve your highest good. And that's not a get out of jail free card. This is fundamentally scientifically proven that we all have kind of a, you know, life path. You know, and we all get directed in a certain way, and we all vibrate, and those vibrations manifest and cause certain things to happen in our lives. Vibrational energy, there's a lot of science behind that, and again, I'll do a separate video on that so you understand vibrational energy and the law of attraction. So, you know, it's not a get out of jail free card when a spellcaster says your higher self is rejecting that, and there's ways they can find that out. They can do divination. So if your spell didn't work and they're saying they don't understand why it didn't work, it, you know, all the energy was going through and the spell seemed successful, ask them to do some divination on it and just figure it out. And chances are, if your higher self is saying no, it's because that spell would put you on a different path to what you're meant to be on, and the path you're on is leading you to something amazing. So, you know, think about that, guys. And that's it. That's all I've got for you. So thank you very much for watching the video, guys, and I hope that this really helps you develop your craft. And if you've got any questions for me, feel free to ask. I'm happy to advise. So give me that all important thumbs up. Let me know that you liked the video. Click that cheeky subscribe button, because it's going to let you know when my next video comes out. And if you've not yet already subscribed to all my other pages of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, please do so. I do lots and lots of different things on there, lots and lots of different tips and tricks for magic, and you get a first-hand look at my spells, my altar, and my magical experiences and my space, so it'll give you lots of ideas. And I am also a member of Patreon, guys, so if you'd like to support my channel and be a patron of it and help my humble little business grow, then you can do that. And everything I have on there is cheaper for you guys than anyone else, so you can order spells through my Patreon at a set price. So no matter what the spell is, it will never be any dearer for you guys. It'll be exactly the same price, cheaper than what I do for everyone else. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Be kind to each other, and I'll see you very soon. Blessed be.